Hi, Geometry. This is Unit 1, Lesson 14, rotations on blank paper. We're going to glue this page onto the blank page after 107 in our workbooks. So if you're at home right now, you could write the pink directions on the blank page after 107. You could draw a very similar triangle ABC and put a point P somewhere on your paper. So when I do a rotation, I need an amount to rotate. In this case, it's going to be 100 degrees. I need a direction. It's either going to be clockwise or counterclockwise. And I need a center. I need a place to be doing this rotation from. So in this problem, I'm going to first do my step 1. I'm going to measure from point P to, I'm going to start with point A. We're going to do this to each one. Point A, and draw a large arc. Now you can either draw the arc right or left. So in parentheses, would you please put counterclockwise left? When some that's not always the case 100% of the time, but in the types of problems I give you, when we're going to be doing a rotation that's counterclockwise, it will be to the left. So let's measure from P to A. So I'm going to put my needle on P, and I'm going to move my pencil to A. And I'm going to do a large arc to the left. So I'm going to do a large arc to the left, and this one's got to be large. So for example, if I go halfway around a circle, that's a 180-degree arc. I know that I'm supposed to rotate A along this arc right here, and I'm only supposed to rotate it 100 degrees. So I know that it's not going to be over here because that'd be 180 degrees. That's half a circle. But I also know it's not going to be up here because that's like 90 degrees right about in here. So it's probably going to be somewhere 100 degrees. It's going to be somewhere over on this side. So now let's find that. So now grab your protractor. We can measure. I'm not sure where I set mine. There it is. So now at this point, we're going to do step 2. On step 2, you're going to measure a 100-degree angle counterclockwise with PA, capital P next to PA. So draw PA long in parentheses. We'll talk about that in a moment. And draw a mark. So what do we mean by this? Let's first draw PA long. So start at P and draw a really long ray. This is my ray PA. So I now would like to measure 100 degrees from this. So I'd like to measure 100 degrees along this arc right here. P is my center. So you can see I turned my papers. I like to have it, so I'm looking at it kind of horizontal. I'm going to put P in the center of my protractor. And now I'm going to be measuring 100 degrees. A lot of times students, and if in this video the directions are confusing you, let me cover up the words underneath there. So I started at P, and this is pointing at A. This line right here is along the line I drew on my book, on my piece of paper. So I'd like to measure 100 degrees. You don't go from 0 to 100. So I'm 170. So I'm not using these numbers on top. You go from 0 to 10. So I'm going to be using the inside numbers to count to 100. This is my 100 degrees. So we are going to measure a 100-degree angle counterclockwise. So I'm using the bottom numbers right now with PA. This is my PA right here. This is my base that's lined up. Center P, goes through A, and I'm going to draw a mark there. So this is my 0 degrees, 10 degrees, 20 degrees, all the way around 100 degrees. At this point, I'm going to move this so that I can put my 100-degree mark right on my paper. And this is 100 degrees from my A along this movement right here. So now for step 3, we're going to find our A prime is where step 1 and step 2 intersect. So now this is my tick mark. I'm going to line it up with P and find where this is my 100 degrees marked on my arc from step 1. So again, my A prime is where step 1, that's this initial arc, and step 2, that's where my 100 degrees, it's where they intersect. This is my A prime. So this is 100 degrees along this pencil arc right here. So now I'm going to do the same thing for B. So step 1, I'm going to measure from P to point B and draw a large arc. So needle on P and my pencil on B, and I'm going to draw a large arc, really large. That's my step 1. My step 2 is to measure my 100-degree clockwise angle with PB this time. So line up your P and your B and draw a long line. I'm now going to put my P in the center of my protractor. I'm going to put my line on my protractor through B, and I'm now going to measure 100 degrees. So again, I'm using the numbers on the inside, 10, 20, 30, 40, all the way over to where 100 is. I can see it's probably going to be about right there on the line. So that's my 100 degrees. I'm going to line up my tick mark with P, and yep, it looks like that's about where it crossed my step 1 arc. So where my tick mark from step 2 and my arc from step 1 intersect is where my B prime is at. So this is my B prime. You have 2 methods to find C prime. I could do all this again, which is how I do it because I find it's quick enough. Or you can measure the distance C is from B and you can mark that arc. You can measure the distance A is from C is from A, and you can mark that arc. Where those 2 intersect is where your C prime is. So I'm going to redo these steps for mine. So I'm going to start with measuring from P to C. And when I do that, I get this distance. And now I'm going to draw a large arc. So I'm going to draw a large arc on my page. It's just under my B prime arc. So at this point, I'm now going to measure 100 degrees along this arc. So I went to 100 degrees along a angle clockwise with PC. So this time, join PC together. And then put your, I went a little high here. I'm going to be using the bottom part. Put P in my center. It's the center of my rotation. Point this line to C. And now this time, I'm going to start not at 170, but at 10, 20, all the way up to 100. You could see 100's up here in my words. I'm not that concerned about it. I'm going to put a little tick mark where 100 is. I just need this part. I'm now going to line this tick mark up with P, and this is where, not on my B prime arc, which is the top one, but on my C prime arc, this is where my C prime will be. This is my 100 degrees. This is my initial arc. This is where my step 1 and step 2 intersect. And this would be my C prime. I'm now going to join those 3 together. I'm going to have my A prime, my C prime, my B prime back to my A prime. And this is my triangle ABC that's been rotated 100 degrees clockwise around P. At this time, I want you to try to do, actually, I'll do the first part with you. So we're going to try to do this again, except notice how I change things. This is 70 degrees clockwise, which is a big difference here, around O. So my steps are going to be the same, except my clockwise direction will be to the right. So step one, I'm going to measure from O to point, well, let's start with F, and draw a large arc, this time to the right. So I'm going to measure from O to F. And if you think about the hands on a clock, the hands on the clock, when they go clockwise, move this direction. It moves to the right. So I'm going to make my arc from F, and I'm going to move this clockwise to the right. I'm moving in the same direction that a clock hand would be moving. This is my clockwise, and my clock would spin this way. So along this arc, I'd like to measure 70 degree. I want to measure a 70-degree angle clockwise to the right with, in this case, OF. So let's measure my OF. And this time, when I put my center, I'm now going to be looking to the left. I'm going to be looking towards F. I'm not going to be looking over here. I'm going to be looking at this side of my protractor. Let me put this white paper behind. So this time I'm going to be using the numbers, not the inside numbers. I don't go from 0 to 170. I go from 0 to 10 to 20 to 30 to 40. So I'm going to measure 70 degrees around the outside. That's going to put me approximately right here. This is 70 degrees from the line OF. I'm going to move my paper so I can make a mark. This is my arc that's around, this is my mark at 70 degrees up here, just above the R in my word from. So now I'm going to line that up with O, and this is my 70-degree mark. This is where my step one and step two intersect. This is my arc from step one. This up here is my 70 degrees from step two. This is where they intersect. This will be my F prime. I'm going to do it all over again for my D prime. Hi, geometry. This is where I could use a video editor. So I got cut off in the last video right when I was getting ready to do my D prime. So I'd like to resume right here. So I'm going to measure from O to D, and I'm going to draw an arc. And this time I'm going to draw it clockwise. So in this case, I'm going to draw my arc clockwise. And I would like to measure 70 degrees along this arc. I'm going to do that by finding the segment OD and measuring 70 degrees away from it. So I'm going to now measure 70 degrees away from this line O through D. So O is in the center and I'm pointing at D. And so I'm using the numbers on the outside again because I'm counting from 0 to 10. So I want to go over here to 70. So I'm going to move this paper and mark my 70 on my paper that I'm drawing on. So I'm right here, kind of below this dashed line. So now I'm going to line that up with O. And now be careful. I don't want to mark it on this bottom arc. This was my F prime arc. I want to mark it on the outside arc. This was my D arc for D prime. So this is my step 3. This is my step 1 arc. This is my step 2, 70 degrees clockwise. And this is where the two measurements intersect. So this is my D prime. I'd like you to pause this video and find E, then connect your 3 points and shade in your triangle. If you have any questions, please bring it back to class. Thank you so much.